Gentleman from New York yields back. The gentleman from Montana is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Horowitz, over here.
Sorry.
All the way down.
Sorry about that.
I appreciate the work you've done and continue to do on your ongoing investigations. I'd like to focus my short time with you on the improper interactions and leaking of information to the media. Mm-hmm. On page 19 of your report, you state that the FBI policy and regulations forbid the confirmation or denial and any discussion of an active investigation except in limited specified circumstances. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. Also, only the FBI director, deputy director, associate deputy director, and other limited staff are authorized to speak to the media. Is that
correct?
Yeah. So why does the agency have such a policy? And could you briefly describe the consequences of not following it?
The agency has a policy because leaks harm cases. They can terribly damage an ongoing criminal investigation, and they harm people's reputations. No one should want to see anybody tarnished with mud, other allegations that are never charged, never proven.
So leaks are damaging?
Leaks are damaging to people and investigations.
Okay. So on page 430 of your report, you state that the FBI policy limits employees who are authorized to speak to the media, but you found that that policy was widely ignored and that numerous FBI employees at all levels of the organization were in frequent contact with reporters. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah. Further, your team identified instances where FBI employees received tickets to sporting events from journalists, went on golfing outings with media representatives, were treated to drinks and meals after work with reporters, and were guests of journalists at non-public social events. Is that correct?
Correct.
Some might consider such gifts as bribes. At the very minimum, these are serious ethics violations. In Appendixes G and H, you identify over 50 FBI employees who had over 300 interactions with reporters during the period you looked at. Is that correct?
Correct.
What evidence did you find that these 300 or so interactions and outings and meals and golf tournaments were authorized and in compliance with FBI policy?
It appears that many were not, and that is precisely why I wanted to make this public. We have this work ongoing, so I can't speak to any individual matter or issue, but I thought it was critical because of our concern as we do these reports on systemic issues, that the public and policymakers and the Department of Justice and the FBI itself understand what the challenge is. When we have to look at leaks and there are that number of contacts, it makes it very, very, very challenging to figure out how we
So you noted that this leaking of information to the media was widely known within the organization and even played a role in decision making.
And that, in addition here, very concerning, correct,
Yeah.
that a number of people made decisions based on concerns over what might be leaked.
Yeah. And you note on page 429, quote, "We have profound concerns about the volume and extent of unauthorized media contacts by FBI personnel that have been uncovered during the review."
Correct.
So given the policy to limit contact with the media was very clear, knowledge of the practice of leaking was widespread, and the potential consequences great, what evidence did you find of any disciplinary action against violating employees?
Well, when leaks were in fact uncovered, there was discipline. Our concern was that the contact alone wasn't being addressed effectively, and that's where the FBI needs to focus on it, and that's what Director Wray has said publicly that he will look at.
So based on your investigation, how many people have been referred to investigation in possible code conduct violations?
I'm not sure of that number, but I can assure you that when we find contacts, even when we can't prove the leak, going forward, when we find contacts, even if we can't prove that someone actually leaked, but if they contacted in violation of policy, we will refer that to OPR for their investigation.
Okay, and at this point, how many FBI or DOJ employees have been fired for violating the leaking policy or accepting
I'd have to
improper
get back
gifts?
to you on that. I don't
Okay,
know off the top of my head.
it's very important given the extent of your findings. And finally, the real issue here is, can the American people trust that these individuals will be held accountable? And can we count on you and your organization in your role as Inspector General to assure that this kind of improper behavior does not persist?
I can, and I will say that we will, to the extent the law permits us, make public our findings when we can make them public.
Thank you, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Mr. Inspector General, how long of a break would you like?
Long enough to get a sandwich or a bite to eat?
Is 45 minutes enough?